Compiz, the cube, Expo, shift switcher, ring switcher, special effects, 3D effects. These effects and more we're going to get working on this edition of Linux Mint 20.3 with the Mate desktop. You can also do this on Xfce, but not on Cinnamon. So if you're on Cinnamon, this does not apply to you. Let's begin by going to the Control Center and Desktop Settings. We go into Windows and change Marco Compositing to Compiz. The screen flickers, that's pretty normal. We're now running on Compiz and we can configure it from this button here. There's actually a reset button there in case everything goes pear-shaped. There's also a button in the Control Center for the Configurations Manager. Naturally, you'll find one in the menu as well if we just scroll down a little bit. Or you can type CCSM in the menu and that'll bring it up that way. So let's fire it up. Heed the warning. This is actually a virtual machine that I'm doing the video on. If we have a look in the background, that's my Linux Mint system running in the background. And as you can see, this is just a virtual machine running on one of my virtual desktops or one of the Compiz viewports. And it doesn't quite work as well. It does crash occasionally on me. I've been trying to do this video for a few days now, and I have had the odd crash here and there. But that said, on my actual Linux Mint 20.3 system, Compiz is rock solid. I don't have any problems with it. And I'll run it on another machine as well. Same thing, no problems at all. Before we get into the settings, in Preferences, you can create another profile. You can also export the current profile, which is Mint, and then import it back in and give it another name, my Mint Compiz profile, whatever you want to call it. And you can build separate profiles. If you'd want to turn some of the effects off and run other effects, that sort of things, profiles are good for doing that. Or if you just want to leave the Mint profile untouched and build on a separate profile. However, it will be slightly different. So for this demonstration, I'm just going to run on the Mint profile. In general, we're just going to have a quick look. General options. Desktop size, we want 4 and 1. So that's the default on the Mint profile in 20.3. If you're on another distro and you can't get the cube, that might be on 1 and 1 or something like that. So you obviously need 4 to have 4 sides of a cube, or 4 horizontal sides. Most of those other settings are fine there. So we're going to skip accessibility. There's nothing in there that I use myself, so I don't know much about it. We come down to desktop and we can see desktop cube and rotate cube are already selected. If we hold down Control Alt and press the left or right arrows, we can actually go around the cube because the cube's already present. Let's select the viewport switcher and resolve the conflicts, and I'm just going to disable rotate to face 1, so that's another key binding. Doesn't affect what I'm doing here. Now I use the mouse wheel on the desktop, push the mouse wheel down, there is the cube. The cube's rather large, so we'll go into rotate cube, and here where it says zoom, we're just going to bump this up to about 0.6. And there we can see we've got a more manageable size. There's other settings in there. That's the only one I touch. I will just warn though, snap to top and snap to bottom face. If I release the mouse now, the cube rolls back, or if I do it that way, it rolls back. I played with these one day and I released the cube in that position and that grey face snapped back and I could no longer use the computer. I'm not sure what those settings are actually there for, but I don't touch them ever again since that experience. Let's now go into Desktop Cube. Control Alt down, so Control Alt down unfolds the cube, and then we can use the left and right arrows again. Behavior, we can go inside the cube, which looks a little bit different. Appearance, we can see the top and bottom grey. You can change the colour there. We'll just pick something at random. So we've got a purple top. Same here, we can go for a bit of a brown on the bottom. And you can also, if you hit custom, let's come down into this purple region. Just turn the intensity down a little bit and select. And it's actually now, you can see what's happened. I was playing with this before and you get all sorts of unusual effects like this. In fact, you can see it's solid on the bottom, but we're sort of looking into an empty box on the top. I think if we go back, this is the colour that was default, so let's just reselect that. You can see it's solid again. I think what happens as soon as you wind the intensity back, so that was this one here, I think, it goes hollow. I think while we're running a solid colour, that it remains like it is there, it's solid. But as soon as we wind that intensity back a little bit, it becomes like that. These X's out to the side, they normally return to the defaults. However, for some reason here, they're going back to white instead of that charcoal grey sort of colour that we had earlier. But you can hit the white, and there's the original colour we had there down in this custom range. So we'll just choose it again there and hit select. We'll do the same with the brown. There it is there. We haven't played with any other colours, so it's just that one. We'll hit select, and now we've returned it back to how it was before. You can also have a sky dome, so if we click the little browse button, and I think there should be some pictures in here. Choose that one. We have to enable JPEG, so we click on that. And now we'll have a sky dome. And we can animate the sky dome, which is a pretty cool effect. I'm just going to return those back to default by hitting those X's. Again, we can change the colour. We'll just choose something. We'll choose a yellow. And we get that sort of effect there. We'll hit the X. I'll see again, that's gone to the blue. So this would have been the original one there. Let's select. Well, that's not as dark as it was, which is helpful for the video. Try another colour. Yeah, definitely not the blue. We'll just go to one of these up here. Try that one. Anyway, you can sort of see roughly what that does. So that's the start and the end colour. So let's just see. We'll just take the blue there. I think the start's the bottom. Go for red. There, I think red at the bottom, blue at the top. So start is the bottom and end is the top. And just go back to those two there. And there we go. The fact that those other colours have been pre-selected in there, I would hazard a guess that somebody in Linux Mint or whoever set this up has not cleared these other things out while they're playing with it. But anyway, that's roughly what it does, the sky dome. So moving right along, transparent cube. You can see it's solid. Let's just put another window on this other face. So that's directly opposite That is the face opposite this one, and we've got no indication that it's present. If we crank this down here to about 50, and now we can actually see it through the cube. You see those top and bottom caps have gone. We've just got a hollow box. Sometimes one setting plays off another. We go back to 100. You can see the top colour is the same as the background colour there, so we've really made a bit of a hash of that, haven't we? We'll just choose something a bit lighter. And we'll choose that one as well. At least we can see the top and bottom. So let's go back to transparent and we'll make this 50 again. And now we've got transparent cube. As I say, the top and the bottom are hollow, but that's just the way it is. And we can now see other windows that are on the cube. Just makes it a whole lot easier to see where your other windows are. Some of that didn't quite go as I was expecting it to, because some of those settings have been played with in the past, but you get the general idea of what they do. Let's move to Expo and Control Alt Up. So Control Alt Up arrow. There is Expo. Expo is great. We can drag other windows across. We can put that there and that over there. You can use the left and right arrow keys to navigate across them with the keyboard. Let's choose an Expo corner edge. Currently none. I'll choose the bottom right down near the clock. And now if I run the mouse down into the clock, it activates Expo for us. So I can activate it, then I can click on this one here and we can go back there. Come back here. Behavior. We'll just slow the animation down a little bit. It's currently what's called zoom. It just zooms like that. Fade and zoom. It's like that. Vortex is a little bit wild. And of course you can have none, which is pretty much just instant. We'll go back to zoom and I'll just return the 0.3 back to the default. Appearance, there's none. We can have tilt, which sort of runs off on a bit of an angle. You can have curve, the ends have sort of bent around. I'll increase the curve strength. And now you can see it a little bit more clearly there. If we go a little bit further, you'll definitely see it. Now those ends wrap around. Go back to about 6.5. You'll also notice there's a bigger gap over on the left than there is on the right. Going to about 24 for the X offset evens that up on my system. Camera distance just sort of pushes the whole effect back further. Viewport distance, there's actually a small gap. You can probably see it down in the reflection here better. But there is a tiny gap between each viewport or virtual desktop. So if we wind that up to 1, you'll see the gap get a little bit larger there. There we go, we can sort of see it a little bit better. I know it's a bit dark, we'll work on that in a moment. We can hide panels and docks. You can see that the panel's still visible. If we select this, it'll hide the panel, obviously. And the inactive viewports. So this is our active one. We can see it's sort of lit up there. That one's now active. So they're at 40. Let's just take this up to 80. And you can see they all look a little bit brighter. We'll go to 60 for the video. So that's the inactive viewports. Selection glow color. It's currently black. I'll just change it to something a bit lighter, and we'll select that green colour, and you'll see a bit of green around the edge. Later in the video I'll log out or restart the machine, and at some point we'll see that all the way around. It'll be more evident. But if we choose other viewports, it follows. Just makes it a bit easier to see which one's actually the active one. And reflection, if we hit the little triangle, we can now scroll down. There's reflection down the front. See this window reflecting. We turn the reflection off. That's dark, and again you can see one setting's playing off the other. You can see the little gap on the end is now completely gone. We'll turn reflection back on. We've got our reflection and our little gap at the end. A reflection ground size. We can see it starts getting dark about halfway up the screen. It's quite dark from there up. So let's turn up the reflection ground size. We can turn it up to 1. See, that's lightened things up a little bit. That's about all I concern myself with in there. So we'll go back. That's the desktop category. We did the viewport switcher, rotate, cube, desktop cube, and Expo. Let's come down to effects. I turn the cube side on. You see the window is flat on the side of the cube face. If we select this, you see it now pops out, and it does have a little bit of thickness to it. Let's go in and look at the settings. We'll start with window depth, and I'm pretty sure we can crank this up to, pretty sure we can have 1.0 in there. Let's have another look. You see that's quite a bit thicker. Let's give it a little bit of colour. We'll make it a bit of a yellow colour, and we'll select that. That's for the active window, which is this one. So let's make the inactive window. Let's go with a bit of this blue. And let's have a look now. You can see that one's blue and this one's yellow. Again, you can click on there. You can hit custom, and you can come down and tweak it all you want in there and turn the intensity down a little bit. All of that fancy stuff's there. You can play with beveled corners, but I don't touch any of that myself, so we'll leave that for now. The minimum cube size and the window space, these sort of play off each other a little bit. See how far that is off the cube. We'll start another window on this viewport. See, they've got a bit of a gap between them. Let's just crank the window space up. And we'll go down with the minimum cube size. And there you can see quite a dramatic effect. I'll just return those back to the defaults. As I say, these sort of play off each other a little bit. We'll go back. That was 3D windows. Animations, see it's already selected. Just going to hit this little triangle and go all the way to the last tab. Or you could actually, if you stretch the thing out a little, if you stretch the window out a little bit, we can now see all of the tabs. And those little arrows disappear. And we're just going to choose for the video random animations for all events. Let's select that. And now if we minimize and restore, we'll get all sorts of different animations. You may have noticed the little preview popping up over the button on the panel. Between the green of the button and the Firefox icon, there's 3 vertical dots. If we right click on them, I can't actually see them here on my monitor, but I know they're there. And here, show thumbnails on hover, we deselect that, and now the thumbnails are gone. And we also have over there, we have the terminal running, but there's no indication on the panel that it's running somewhere. We go to Workspaces, and we can show windows from all workspaces. You'll see it'll turn up on the panel. And clicking on its button will take us to that desktop, to that application. It'll bring us back to this one. This is that's nothing to do with Compiz. That's part of the Mate desktop. Just thought I'd bring that up while we were there. You can customize all sorts of different open, close animations, minimize, unminimize, and so on. But I'm not going to get into any of that right now. I find the random events is good enough. Animations Plus, there's some good stuff in there. It's a little intense on some of the resources, so I'm going to leave that out, but yeah, feel free to go in there and have a bit of a look. I'm not touching most of these other ones. Fire Paint's enabled, but I'm actually going to disable it. Let's get into cube reflection and deformation. So if we activate the cube, there's no reflection down the bottom, so let's enable this and have a look. We've got reflection down the bottom, however you see the cube's now turned into a cylinder. We'll go to deformation, you can see it's on cylinder. There's also a sphere. But we're going to go to none, which should give us the cube back. You'll see things are a little bit darker again. We'll go back to reflection. And here we have the reflection ground size and the intensity. So if you note how dark that is, and it's also got that horizontal line across the center of the screen. Let's turn the reflection ground size up. Go up to 1. And also with the, well, we'll have a look at that. It's lightened up a little bit. Let's wind this intensity up as well. And that line should disappear. Indeed it has. Okay, we can now see we've got some cube caps. There's an image in the top, one in the bottom. Let's go back to cube caps. And there's the image fusion cap and Compiz cap. That's the actual image files. We go into behavior, draw top and bottom face. Let's deselect those. And now they're gone. Also notice that it's lightened up quite a bit by doing that. I'm not sure that probably won't be so dark on your actual system. Again, I think that's a bit of a relic of the virtual machine. Let's go new and let's browse to pictures and find something fairly light here. That looks bright enough. We click on that file and hit up, or you could click on the other one and press down. Either way, whatever is at the top of the list here is what gets displayed. So let's go and have a look at the top. After we enable draw top face again, and there is the image on the top. Of course, you can do the same with the bottom. Now it's gone and everything's a little bit lighter. And we'll leave it like that for the duration of the video. Go back. So that was cube reflection and deformation. Don't really touch anything else there, although we'll do wobbly windows because that's a bit of a favourite with a lot of people. We need to disable snapping windows. And again, we need to disable it. And there we go. We've just lost our title bars. Compiz has had a little bit of a crash on us. So at this point, I'm going to restart the virtual machine and we'll pick it up in a moment. Okay, I've restarted the virtual machine and we can see wobbly windows are actually working. Our cube is still there and Expo. And there we can see, as I mentioned before, the selection glow color is actually glowing all the way around as it should. So a bit of a refresh there for the virtual machine. That's Wobbly Windows. We'll have a look at some of the settings. There's friction and spring. These seem to be the main two settings. So if we have a look, that gets a nice little wobble and then it stops. If we come down on the friction, I wouldn't go much below about there. That gets fairly springy, as you can see, or lacks friction. It's going to take a moment to settle out. I'd be very careful if you go down to 0.1 or something like that. You can actually flick them across the screen and it might take a minute or two for it to settle down. Let's do the same with the spring K. We'll come down. This one's not so diabolical. We'll go to 0.3. You can see we can get quite a bit of deforming happening on the window. As I say, they sort of seem to be the main two settings there. We'll just hit the defaults again for safety and sanity. There's also the maximize effect is pre-selected, so if we maximize the window, you get a nice little effect from it there. And obviously if you deselect that, it just behaves more traditionally. I'm going to turn Wobbly Windows back off for the duration of the video. That's pretty much all I bother myself with in there. I don't touch any of the extras. I will show thumbnail previews. If we turn that on, we get the previews down here that we turned off before. But it's now courtesy of Compiz rather than Mate Desktop. And of course there's some settings in there. You can play with fonts and sizes and so forth. I'm going to turn that back off, but that's how you do that if you want those thumbnails. They're not clickable and they only work when the window's actually on the screen. So you get no preview now. If we start another window, for example, we get a preview of it, but if I minimize it, there's no preview. Each to their own. That's basically what it is. Let's scroll down a little bit further. I don't touch any of the image loading. In utility, I'll just show the wallpaper. So we click on that and we'll enable it. Let's go new. And then we browse into pictures. And I'll just take the first one there. And you can see it's now gone straight to that wallpaper. So Compiz is now handling the wallpaper. And that'll be on all of the desktops. I'm going to add the rest of them. I'll speed the video up here while I do that. I've now imported about 8 different wallpapers. You can see that all the names listed in there, and they'll be in that order. So if we now actually have a look, you can see we've got a different wallpaper on each desktop. So if we wanted this one here on the first desktop, so that's the first desktop, second, third, fourth from left to right. But let's just click this one here and we hit down. That should bring those city lights onto our screen, so it's effectively swapped those over. As I say, that just follows the first 4 there will be the 4 on the cube. We can cycle wallpapers. Just change the time here. I think we can have 0.15. And let's hit the little cycle wallpapers. So that's about 9 seconds. Let's have a look. They should shuffle across to the left there in a moment. And there they go. So a new one's going to come in from the right. The one on the left's going to leave, and that'll just rotate round and round in circles over that 8 or 9 wallpapers, whatever I've put in there, every 9 seconds, which is probably a little bit quick. And we'll turn that back off. And if I disable enable wallpaper. If I deselect this, it should go back to the wallpaper that I had before, and indeed it has. So that's wallpaper. And down to the last category, which is window management. And before we do that, I've only got the one corner, which is this bottom right corner, because as I mentioned before, this is a virtual machine, and that's actually Compiz working there on my system in the background. And I'm using the other three corners on that system. So what we're going to do is just come up and disable Expo for the moment. We'll come back down. We're going to enable scale, and I'll actually put something on each desktop here. One on there. Put something on this desktop as well. Let's put it up in that corner. Just resize that a little bit. Put the calculator or something on here. And if we go into scale, the settings aren't there, so I'll have to close Compiz for the moment and restart. It should fix that. Let's have a look. Again, that's just the virtual machine doing that. Here is our settings. We go to the bindings. Initiate window picker, so you can see it's offering us, you can do it keyboard, mouse or the screen, but this is only for the whatever current viewport you're on. I want it for all windows or all 4 viewports, so let's choose the screen edge. So I'm going for the bottom right, which is why I disabled Expo. Presumably on your system you'll have all 4 corners available to you, but let's dive the mouse down into the clock. And that's scale, so you can see there's something on every desktop that's showing there. If we click on the terminal, that'll take us to it. We're actually going to now minimize the terminal, and you'll see that it's missing. And that's because it's minimized. If we do the same, for example, with the file browser, we'll minimize that. So it's only showing what's visible on the desktop, similar to Expo mode. If it's minimized, you won't see it. So if I click on the file browser, it takes me to that viewport, and there it puts it back up on the screen. Same with the terminal, and now all 4 of them should be back. But it is pretty handy for quickly getting to something. You're on one thing, you want to quickly, even if you just want to go and have a look, you might have a video or something playing and just want to see where it's at. That's pretty handy to jump around the screen nice and quick. That scale. I'm going to go back. I'm going to disable it. You can have workspace naming. So this one here is called viewport 1. Let's call it video. And we'll enable workspace naming. We have to enable text. You should see viewport 2 come up there, and if we go back, video. And in appearance you can change the fonts and sizes and colours and all that fancy stuff there. Again, I do find workspace naming handy. Just when you flick around a cube, you know sort of where you are, which one am I on. Move window and resize window. If I deselect that, I can no longer move the window. And now I can move it again. And resize does the same thing respectively with resizing. Place windows. So placement is smart. I'm going to choose centered. You'll notice everything's been opening into that top left corner. Let's now enable place windows, and it should be centered. So let's see what happens. And there it is, centered. I'll leave that running. The ring switcher. Let's enable the ring switcher. Again, you have options for just the current viewport. For example, if you had 3 different windows on this viewport, you could select them with Super Tab. But in our case, we're going to go for this next window, all workspaces, which is Alt Super Tab. So Alt Super Tab, there is the ring switcher, Tab, 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 and if I hold down Shift, it goes back the other way. Whatever application's at the bottom is the one that comes back when you release the keys. Alt Super Tab. Compiz should come back to us. So again, if we put something another window or two up on this viewport here, we'll just open a couple of random little applications here. Alt Super Tab, and there they are. If we go to General Options, we can allow mouse selection. Let's enable that. Alt Super Tab, and now I've got the mouse. I don't have to cycle all the way around. If I see what I want, I can just click straight on it and bring it up that way there. So there's Compiz. I don't want to go all the way around, so I can just select it with the mouse and Compiz comes back. I'll disable it again. We'll go back. That was the ring switcher. The shift switcher, one of my favourites. Let's enable it. Let's go and have a look at some of the settings. Again, I'm going to choose a corner edge for all workspaces. And I'm going to choose the bottom right. And let's have a look. We get this nice effect. So we dive the mouse into the corner that we've chosen and then roll the mouse wheel. Or we can roll the mouse wheel the other way. Pretty neat effect. Some general options. In appearance, you'll notice they have a little emblem in their lower right corner. You'll have big, which will put it right in the middle. And if we go here, let's just minimize that. So that's the file manager minimized. And if we cycle through now, see, it just shows up as its icon because it's minimized. Or we can have none, so there's no emblem of any sort. There's also the shift mode, so that's currently what's called cover. So this is called cover. We can also have flip. And again, we can roll the mouse wheel one way or the other. And here there's some flip mode, flip angle, so that's on 30. Was going off to the left. If we put a minus in front of that, it'll actually go off to the right. And you could increase that to 60 degrees if you wanted to the right. Just turns them a little bit more side on. If we go back to cover, and here's some settings for cover mode. So the cover angle is at 60. We take that up to 90. They'll be like razor blades on the edge almost. Or if we take it to 30, it's like shuffling a deck of cards. I'm just going to restore the default there, and the same up here with the flip mode, and we'll leave that in cover. I think we looked at all the stuff there. That's sort of about as far as I go with any of it. Go back and disable that. Go back and turn Expo back on. That's most of the Compiz settings that I know and use myself. There's a ton more in there, but that's sort of just about straining the limits of my knowledge. It can be a little overwhelming when you first use it, and even for myself, I still occasionally accidentally bump corners when I'm trying to do something. You're going for the menu and you activate whatever's going on in that corner, that sort of thing, but you sort of get used to it after a little while. You know what you've done right or wrong. Whilst they are flashy and some people think they're just for show-offs, I find them very functional as well. With a quick swipe, just with one hand and a single click, I can do a swipe and a click and I'm there, or I can go back just as quickly to that desktop there. All just with one swipe, one hand, one click in less than 1 second. Most of those settings, if they're available on your system, whether you're using Linux Mint or some other distro, most of those settings should work and behave about the same, in my experience. Well, there you go. That should give you some Compiz toys to play with and figure out which ones you like and tweak some of the settings that are available in Compiz. That's pretty much my take on Compiz.